And I mean, that would probably for somebody, an individual, to actually go through the college and get degrees in every angle, and it would take a lifetime, I'm sure.
Right.
So I know, and I've spoken to doctors, all kinds of doctors, the knowledge that and then they say, wow, like
Yeah.
that's, and so it's unfortunate, but this has, hopefully, will change in the future, but I'm sure it's not going to be
Well,
near future.
it's not going to change
Right.
anytime soon.
No, not
no.
any, and I can say it's not.
Not in our
Because-
lifetime.
because
No, no.
What
Well,
what would change it would be Bernie Sanders getting elected and instituting universal health care. Right now we have a very fractured system of health care, and we
Well-
have the most expensive health care in the world, and not certainly not the best health care.
in
I
the real
voted for Bernie.
socialistic, and I
Got my
come from
mail-in
Belarus,
ballot,
where I lived
Bernie.
for 11 years in this
I
kind of
sent it back.
medical
Mhm.
structure. Is what's really interesting is the doctors are really interested to cure people, okay? Because they have
Yeah.
quotas. They don't have a Rolodex of patients, and they kind of schedule. The government gives you, like, let's say 100 people per month, right?
Mhm.
So, but what happens is, if you don't, fix the problem, that person comes back to you,
Yeah,
and
right.
you have no choice.
Hmm.
You have no choice
How
but to
about
fix that problem. So what, essentially what happens is the doctor really tries not to, stay at the office
They don't
for
want to
like.
see you again.
Well, they don't want to be at the
But
office
you're taken from other
around the
patients.
clock,
Right.
because that's exactly what they have to
No,
do,
In,
and they have no other choice. But
in
I mean,
Belarus,
but the problem.
they set up
but the
in
problem-
the system
but
like they don't
the-
want that patient
see-
to come back because they don't.
See the
they
problem.
can't charge again.
Let me say this though. The problem is that with the science growing so rapidly, even in Belarus, the doctors are starting to charge money for medicine,
Mhm.
because what's going on is they have to leave across the border and study at colleges that they don't have. I mean, you have to do that now, and in order for you to recover your, costs and everything, you have to. It's absolutely impossible. So it's
Gotcha.
and unfortunate, because if the world would have evolved the other way around, then it would have been different. But we're evolving this. We're growing this way. It's
going
it's not
sideways.
good. It's not good. But this is the way that things are. Sometimes it's you can't change gravity. Sometimes and it's unfortunate. But if there, I mean, I'm not I'm not an Einstein. Maybe there is something that can that can be done. I just can't say or think of it right now at the moment. But yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that the pandemic too really just showed how disorganized our healthcare system is.
yeah.
To not be able to immediately respond to an outbreak of an infectious disease in a certain part of the country, with adequate ventilators, adequate staff, adequate masks, adequate all the personal protective equipment. To have that delayed for such a long time is really inexcusable. I mean, it really
Right.
just showed how poor this.
Well, we're not the
this-
only country,
Well, no.
because we're the leading provider of ventilators right now to the rest of the world, and there isn't a single patient that is left without a ventilator today.
Today.
Today,
right,
correct.
That's today.
It's
but
a little too late.
What are we
Yeah.
looking
But-
right?
but-
like, and what are we looking for
okay.
to the future if that second wave that there
Yeah.
if this wasn't our second
Right,
wave?
right.
I say I believe this was the second wave because there's so many people that were sick
I
that
watched-
we didn't know about. Then this
I
coming
watched
through.
I watched the interview where the president talks about where he's acquiring NASA technology, where they're gonna use these kind of fog machines from NASA to sanitize the whole school or like a office building or a government facility, where I mean this was not there before, but it's not because of this administration's fault or even the last administration's fault, or even this has never happened in United States
But that's
on
not
this scale.
true.
On
That's
this
not true. What about AIDS?
1917. Well, I mean,
AIDS was our
well,
last epidemic that we're still in the middle of.
right. Well, I mean, in terms of something similar to something like this.
But isn't that
In
similar?
comparison for the kids going through this, because I've never went through this as a kid.
Yeah.
So I mean, can you just imagine, being locked in the house and then you come out and you see people wearing masks, and you have
Other than not, places being closed, so if I could, I can't go there. This is not much different than my normal.
right life.
And I think that has put me at a disadvantage where Austin is concerned with his anxiety and just
To you,
in
it's so
general.
normal, and it's
Because
just
it
like
is so normal to me. My first reaction when I hear people complaining is, "Oh, come on, man! Could you
Yeah.
imagine going through this when there were no like I didn't have cable
And
TV.
it's
I didn't
interesting
have
that you say
you know,
that.
I had to
Yeah.
wait for my friends to get done school and get done their schoolwork, and the most I could hope for was a phone call that we could three-way somebody back then.
Same
And that was
thing.
if I could get to the phone.
Same thing with career, or cannabis people that medicate with cannabis or use it recreationally, and they've been using it for a long time, and people that are in their surroundings that have never used it. It's the chasm is so wide, and it's so hard to comprehend the person's fear when you say, hey, because society demonized this miracle plant for so many years. It's so hard, to look a person in the eyes and say, no, 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 this is actually really good for you.
Right.
Yeah.
It's but and a lot of people, because of this kind of demonization for so many years, legitimately have panic attacks the first time they use it, and it's not because of per se maybe the plant or the way it was grown or any
It's
other.
the mindset you think more than anything.
It's the psychological state that they go into when they use it for the first time. So, and it's unfortunate that the society has created this monster, but we're giving it everything, not just whatever. There's nothing. I mean, we're all of us here. We pretty much we do everything we humanly can. That's and it's making a change. The change, we're in a pacifist of legalization. I believe it's
We're in what?
pacifist. If
Oh,
that's
precipice, yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and but
On the cusp.
on a cusp, right? So
But I felt like we were on the cusp back in the 1970s too. But to
well,
control dangerous.
in between. So geopolitically speaking,
Right.
Yeah, the whole.
we're like ripe. This is like you. I mean, there's
But
nowhere.
haven't we
nowhere,
always been?
No, because well, everything was more or less of a black market in terms of cannabis. The northern lights coming from the up top, and the brick coming from the bottom.
Yeah. Well, there's
And-
always a possibility of a backlash. I mean, we feel pretty confident that the ballot question is going to pass in November. Although we're not taking anything for granted, but we think that we certainly have the numbers now. But if it doesn't pass in November, and a lot of people are opposed to the ballot question for I think their own selfish reasons, or because they fear that it's not going to do enough for them particularly. Or because most generally because they make money from cannabis being illegal. That's the most
The biggest-
prominent
right.
reason why people are opposed to
Right.
marijuana reform.
But I
But
think
if we do not legalize it in November, we could get a Republican governor next
See-
for 8 years, like Christie, who would just sit on
Sits on it.
on marijuana
the amount
reform,
of
and it
people
wouldn't
that
happen
actually
for a decade.
profit from actually generate in the black market, a profit is, and I've always said this, is nothing compared to the user base. So in other words, when it comes to the polls, it's gonna be dust in the wind. Their vote is gonna be dust in the wind compared to the people that are
Yeah,
recreate.
yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, just
I-
the mathematical.
I hope you're right.
Well, I
yeah.
mean, mathematically, it's
Yeah.
just it's very logical
Yeah.
when you think of it that
Right,
way.
right.
And also, I mean,
I mean, we saw the same thing in California with Prop 64.
Right.
Where the marijuana growers united with the police to oppose Prop 64 to legalize marijuana for adults in California. So it was the police, it was the substance abuse industry.
The
it
key
was, it
is
was
the
the
grow.
marijuana
We don't
growers.
we don't have any growers here in New Jersey. Very rarely.
Yeah,
Very.
right.
It's the amount, the population size in the state. Plus, when you look at the incarceration numbers, what do we have? 30,000 plus annually. So this is 30,000 people for how many years angry at the system that want to change it.
That's just for marijuana, yeah.
That's just for small
Well,
possessions.
arrests, yeah.
Simple
Yeah,
arrests.
right.
So I think it's, the silent majority in this is, I think it's all my life, ever since I've been using cannabis since I was 11 years old. I'm 35, and throughout high school, college, adult life, I can't. People look at it as less of a harmful substance than beer, a bottle of beer, and they want it legal. Everybody wants it legal. I've not. I've personally, if
Come
this,
to my town. I'll introduce you to a bunch of people that don't want it
I don't,
legal.
I
And
don't
the
want to
worst
know. I don't
thing
want.
is
You know,
these people, the same people that are the biggest voices telling me, "Don't, you're evil." They're the ones that I used to buy my weed from when I was a kid.
Wow.
They're the reason I
Well-
started smoking weed is because I
Oh,
bought
boy.
it from them, and yet they're telling me, "Oh, Austin's not allowed to play with their children because I'm vocal about the fact that I'm a medical marijuana patient."
About
And they're
that.
alcoholics, and they're willing to
Yeah.
admit that they're alcoholics, but they're better than me
Yeah.
because their alcohol doesn't hurt anybody.
well, look at the.
Are you kidding me?
Look
Really?
at the medical program in New Jersey and the way that it exploded when it expanded.
Mhm.
Now think of that and think of recreational, right? I mean, it's going to be 10 times more in terms of the amount of people. The consensus. I mean, everything is there. And if we're gonna get, I mean, I don't want to. I don't really want to, explore this topic anymore because it's a negative kind of venue at this point. We're looking to, do all this to. I mean, it's never bad, to kind of look at that position and explore that. But I think it's more important that we explore what we can do to promote
Yeah,
the,
yeah, sure.
the like registering voters
Mhm.
and reaching out to the
Right.
sororities
Right.
and
It's a more positive.
it's a more
approach, for
positive
sure.
approach,
Yeah.
and we should be using all of our time, which is not much actually. What do we
I
have?
know.
4 more months.
I know.
Yeah, it-
But
Definitely not
in
much.
my heart of
July,
hearts,
August,
I don't.
September,
In my heart of
October,
hearts, I don't think
October.
we even need to do because the silent majority on this is there. That's all I gotta say. I believe that all my life.
But
and
now we
that's-
gotta
that's
get
what
the
I stand.
silent majority to stop being so silent and come forward and make sure they vote.
Yeah, right,
Or we're
they gotta
gonna
come
just
back
be
and vote.
stuck in this never-ending cycle. It's
So anyway, just one other issue came up. I got a phone call yesterday from Steve Kadonsky. Now, Mr. Kadonsky had just spent 26 years at New Jersey State Prison in Trenton for a nonviolent marijuana offense, and it was his first marijuana offense. It was his first offense, and they gave him 26 years. And he has lifetime parole. He's out of prison right now, but he's still under lifetime.
What did he
parole.
do?
Well, he tried to move a lot of marijuana. Let's face it. But they got him under the kingpin statute, and
Oh, boy.
and they destroyed this guy. So he finally got out, but Mr. Kadonsky was very active. He spent his time in prison trying to deschedule marijuana. And he did it in a very logical way. Now, coincidentally, I got to know him because at the same time, right after New Jersey's law passed in 2010, I said, well, we have to now deschedule marijuana because it doesn't make sense for New Jersey to have marijuana as a Schedule 1 drug, that says that there are no accepted medical uses for marijuana in New Jersey when the Department of Health says there's all these accepted medical uses for marijuana.
Right.
So
Right.
I went, I did some research, and I went to the director of the Division of Consumer Affairs, Chris Goldstein, and I went in Newark, and we had a meeting with him. Tom Calcagni was his name at the time. And we had a meeting in Newark, and we with a bunch of his lawyers there at the Division of Law and Public Safety in the Office of Attorney General in Newark. And he was very interested in what I had to say about how marijuana should be descheduled and how you, Mr. Calcagni, are the guy to do this. And he said, "Well, thank you. I'm going to set up a series of meetings with you, and we're going to keep this conversation going." And then when we left his office, all the meetings were canceled. There were no more meetings with Mr. Calcagni after he talked to Governor Christie, and there was no more communication. So we did not get a formal rejection from Calcagni, and that was the mistake that we made. What Mr. Kadonsky did, as an inmate at New Jersey State Prison in Trenton, he started going through the Office of Administrative Law, saying exactly the same thing that I said, and I said that he said, I was convicted as a kingpin of distributing a large amount of marijuana because but it should no longer be considered a Schedule 1 drug because now you have this program where there's you recognize some uses for it.
Right.
And so they did the same thing to Mr. Kanansky. They said, "No, get out of here. You're wrong, kid." But he didn't take it. He didn't stop there. He took it to court, and he had some lawyers behind him, and he took it to court. And the Superior Court said, "Well, no, we're going to go along with whatever the director of the Division of Consumer Affairs said in the Office of Attorney General." And at that point, he said something that what he said was, "I don't have the authority to reschedule marijuana." Now, if you look at the New Jersey Administrative Code and the law, it clearly says that the person who has the power to reschedule drugs is the director of the Division of Consumer Affairs. So he must not have read that. Anyway, but Kadansky didn't stop there. He took that to appellate court, and he appealed that decision. And I was there, and I listened to that. And he had lawyers there at the appellate court at the Richard J. Hughes complex, and the appellate court agreed that
Wow.
Mr. Kadansky. It was a different director of the Division of Consumer Affairs, a guy by the name of Mr. Lee at that time. He said Mr. Lee was wrong when he said he didn't have the authority. And in 1991, when that law passed, there were no recognized medical uses for marijuana, but now there are. And this is what the court said. The two judges on the appellate court. So he sent the case back to the original judge. In between that time, the Office of Attorney General, 2 years ago, over 2 years ago, in March of 2018, they conducted hearings in Newark and in Trenton to reschedule marijuana or deschedule it. I testified in Trenton along with 14 other people, 13 of whom testified in support of rescheduling marijuana for various reasons or descheduling it altogether. Right. And they took all our testimony, and then they also had a meeting in Newark, and there was public testimony, and a lot of people testified there. And over 2 years later, now it's June of 2020, nothing has come of those meetings. There has been no further action. You talk about government in action, Jim Miller. Here's another great example of government inaction. You hold public hearings on descheduling marijuana because the court was wrong. Because one of the judges was wrong, and because the Office of Division of Consumer Affairs was wrong, and nothing happens. Nothing happens. So, at any rate, Mr. Kanansky called me. I was very happy to hear that he got out of prison, and he said he's going to pursue this. He's going to continue to pursue this with his lawyers.
Right on.
And hopefully, we're going to get some action.
This is the only
from
way
this.
to go about the situation.
Yeah.
Anyway. You can't just let it get stale and kind of like let it go, because then obviously their inaction is going to be more prevalent. But there's a gentleman right now that we're petitioning for in another state. I can't. I was trying. My internet's not working, but
From
it's like a
another
family
state,
picture.
or the gentleman that's
But
in
this
jail now in
it's
New
like
Jersey.
I'm not sure, but
The
I know it's
patient
it's like
that-
a picture of his daughter, his wife, and like he has like long hair. I think they're giving him life right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, everybody signed the petition. Jim Miller actually.
Oh,
signed
that
it.
one. Oh,
Yeah.
the Pennsylvania, yeah.
Yeah, in Pennsylvania, right? I couldn't
Jeez.
bring up the thing because my internet's not.
Pennsylvania's
I know
rough.
this is going back a tiny bit, but do we have anybody like this is kind of
Yeah, rough
I guess
indeed. I've been waiting for
going
my
off of-
unemployment, Ken, for 5 months now.
You've been waiting what?
For my unemployment, 5 months.
Oh, no. Really?
Yeah, I've received all the documentation, the debit card, the PIN, the approval letters. 5 months during a pandemic, they're holding my phone. 5 months I can't. I've been calling them every day for over 120 days. Every day for hours on the phone, emails, chat, and nothing works. No responses. I got in contact with the legislators. I got in contact with the Treasury, nothing, no
Nobody cares.
answers. It's a complete gridlock.
Have we,
So-
or do we have, because I haven't been able to find it, but maybe I'm looking in the wrong place. When Jim was talking about the disconnect with us not having somebody in the Department of Health that we can go to answer our questions and kind of help us navigate the program. Do we have anybody at the Department of Disability Services who is there specifically to help the disabled of New Jersey obtain or go through the process?
I'm not sure.
No.
Because I was looking, because I've been having some problems with the state getting my card all worked out because of my name change, and it's just been one constant after another. And then I was talking to one of the supervisors at MMP the other day, named Janice, and she said, "Well,
Where?
you're disabled at NJ, the MMP program when you call."
Oh, medical marijuana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she said, "But you're disabled. Can't you get help from Disability Services?" And I said, "You know what? I don't think I can." And I started doing the research, and I reached out directly to Perry, the director of Disability Services, and I'm still waiting on a response. So it doesn't seem like we
oftentimes,
have any.
Did you look for like an ombudsman or a social work services or some kind of line that you?
They
can, you
have
can reach?
those, but they won't assist or help you obtain medical marijuana.
Oh,
Or
yeah.
they
yeah.
won't help you find a doctor. They won't discuss options with you.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
won't do any of
Yeah.
that.
What kind of
And-
help are you looking for?
Well, I mean, for me, like, I got to get everything worked out with my card. Like, I'm legal in the system, but I don't have a valid ID right now because they're still playing games with my name change. They're blaming it on my doctor. He needs to do something in his system to make their system recognize for them to be able to make the changes. And it's like, I'm all over the freaking place, but I
Is
know
this-
I'm not the only one having issues who's a disabled individual with the program itself. And I just,
Is this a way of saying that you were married recently?
couple of times.
Oh, congratulations if you were, because I don't remember.
No, I was
being
still, yeah,
divorced.
I got, my divorce was finalized.
Oh, so you're reverting to your maiden name.
Yes, I'm going back to my maiden name. And it seems like all the other programs to deal with has been the most difficult for MMP. Like, they still have me. I carry my old driver's license with my married name on it, my MMP, which is expired, and my new driver's license. And the best that they can tell me is if I get pulled over or anything, to tell the police.
Gonna
It
want to stay
just-
patient and
it
not want to
terrifies
throw their medical card away, because in the future, I'm sure, right, I mean, I don't know, but Cam might have the answer to this, but I would assume in the future, even post legalization, patients hopefully will be able to get their medication for free, paid for by the state. However,
That's not going to happen until federal descheduling
well,
happens.
in the future, I'm saying, I don't know when or what, but with these medical cards, they're still going to be in use, is what I'm saying. They're not going away, is what I'm saying.
Right, exactly. They're not. And right now, we
And-
don't have anybody that can be the intermediary in between
The state
the,
and the
the
patient.
state, the patient,
doctor.
the DOH
Right.
to the MMP program itself, because we know that there's a disconnect there, and then the patient with the doctors, because there's disconnects there.
Right.
We have nobody for anybody to go to and say, okay, this is where I'm at, this is what's going on. What are your thoughts, or what can you do to assist me into walking this
into-
path
right.
and being able to accomplish
Acquire-
this?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
accomplish my goal without risk, or me having the fear or the risk that I may lose other programs that I qualify for.
And
In my
benefits.
situation, I don't qualify for shit because I made too much when I worked, so my Social Security is too high. So for a two-person household, I don't qualify for any type of assistance. But while I don't qualify for any type of financial assistance, there's a million other programs out there that I should qualify just because I'm disabled and I'm here, but nobody tells you about them. And if you don't know which questions to ask, you'll never know they exist. I told Justin about a program through Department of Developmental Disabilities where as long as we're alive, because our spina bifida is never going to go away, we qualify for a $2,800 stipend. You only get it every other year. But as long as we're still alive, we get it. I completely forgot this program existed until I'm going through all kinds of paperwork and I find my letter and I'm like, wait a minute, I haven't gotten this. So I reached out to them and I said, why haven't I gotten any of these checks since the last one I got was 2010? Why haven't I gotten any since? Like, that's, 5 checks that I'm missing? If they're every other year and we're 2020, like, what's going on? Oh, well, we couldn't verify that you were still living. Are you kidding me? So for 10 years, I didn't get benefits that I deserved because you couldn't verify that I'm alive. Like, I'm alive. Here, but nobody ever reached out to me. Nobody ever tried to contact me. Nobody ever did any of that. They left it all in my lap, which I understand that they do that in the hopes that many disabled will forget about these programs. Like I did. I was so drugged out of my mind, I didn't know my name. How was I supposed to remember this?
Right.
Yeah, and now I'm asking questions, and everybody's like, shoo. What are you asking for? What do you want to? Like, well, we couldn't verify you're still alive. Jay.
So you can't get back pay?
No, they won't give me the back pay.
What if you take
Even
them to
though
court?
I can prove that, and they were willing to admit that they never attempted to reach out to me. I was told that, and my case manager, who is obviously no longer my case manager, said that the problem was she didn't know how to deal with me as the patient. She was used to dealing with caretakers, family members, and to me that's scary because what's the difference? What are you going to tell them differently than you're going to tell me?
No.
Like, so basically, my mom's sitting right here next to me. I give her the phone, and you're going to tell her the same exact thing that you're telling me? Because the story shouldn't be different. There should be no difference.
Right.
Like, but what, you want to speak to my caretaker because maybe they're less knowledgeable about the programs and the services that are available to me, and maybe you can bully them into either not believing that they exist or feeling that I don't qualify, or regardless, maybe you can bully them better into not going for these programs, aid services, whatever it is, as opposed to when you're talking to me, I know what I should be getting. I might be wrong on some of it. You know, who knows? Things change every day. But if I had to be the one constantly...
So did you start getting checks yet?
No, not yet.
But you've
I'm
applied.
I'm working on it,
Yeah,
yeah,
you're
because
working
got
on
rid
it,
of the
yeah.
case manager after she said that, you know, she couldn't deal with me, because to me that was
Yeah,
ridiculous, so I
yeah.
filed a complaint, and she has since been fired, because that is really scary. I mean, because
That's
over all of
unbelievable.
these years, how many other, I can't be the only one who has a developmental disability, but is not cognitively
You're
affected.
not the only person
I
like
know
that.
I'm not.
No
Like,
way.
I asked Justin, I said, are you part of DDD? And he said, what's that? And I said, it's Department of Developmental Disabilities. He said, I don't have a developmental disability. I said, yes, you do, dude. You have spina bifida. Spina bifida is like,
Yeah, spina bifida.
it's number 1. Yes, he does. It's number 1 on the list for the state of New Jersey of developmental disabilities. The qualifications are that it occurred or started to affect you prior to the age of 22.
Wow.
We were born with it.
Yeah.
And spina bifida being that in most cases it does have cognitive effects. That's why it's automatically qualifier. But yet, he didn't know.
Payments.
Mhm.
You know, that's terrible, Tracy. Terrible.
I mean, and
That's-
I'm
that's
only short
barbaric.
10
Yeah.
years worth of
Honestly,
payments.
that's-
Justin's short
that is
35
barbaric.
years worth of
That's-
payments.
Gross.
And only because he didn't know
Yeah. Right.
that
Just-
the
yeah.
cognition had nothing to do with the approval
Yeah.
or acceptance to the program. And they don't tell you.
When you
Why-
say
why would they?
developmental disabilities, you just think that's-
Mentally.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what
Right
that's
away.
the first
Yeah,
thing I
right,
think.
Right.
That's-
I was
Well, we're not
surprised
lawyers,
that
so
spina
that's
bifida
okay.
qualified as a
But-
developmental disability. I didn't know that.
It
I
does
would have thought that it didn't, you know.
because
so.
the due to the fact that the majority of spina bifida patients have some sort of cognitive issues because of the spinal fluid buildup on the brain, hydrocephalus in most cases, that's where you're going to see more
Yeah,
issues
yeah,
with
sure.
cognition than anything else. But if you look at what's going on with today, you're having more spina bifida patients being cognitively affected. Surgeries are creating additional complications for the fetus due to the fact that now they're closing in all of that spinal fluid and attaching all the pressure into one. You're capturing it into one area. So now you have however many months worth of buildup of pressure and fluid on the brain, which is what causes severe cognitive dysfunction and disability. So they might be closing the hole and fixing the physical situations. They're not doing anything to help the cognition. They're actually creating more issues, because now once that child's born, they have to rush them right into OR and put a shunt in and immediately, and then hope they don't have any issues in that sense. They're finding out now, as the studies are coming out with the in utero surgeries, that they are of no help to the actual patient, because now, 10 years down the road, when they're following back up with these children who had the in utero procedures, they still have hydrocephalus, they still have cognitive dysfunction, they still walk with braces and are wheelchair bound, and they're still having the symptoms of spina bifida without necessarily having the name of spina bifida. So what did you fix? I mean, because if somebody had gone in and done in utero surgery on me, I'd be dead. Definitely, because they already told my parents the best outcome for me was that I would. Well, if I lived a year, and here I am, 41 years old, I walk, I talk, I'm a mother, I carried the child. All things that by all laws of nature I should not have been able to do, because in myelomeningocele you're actually missing complete portions of the vertebrae. It's not just little pieces, it's complete portions. So there's nothing connecting our skeletal structure. How do you stand? How do you walk? If your skeletal structure is not completely connected, how do you do it? But I do it, and so does Justin. But we both know patients who have meningocele who are in a much worse position than we are.
Right.
Because we have some ambulation abilities, where many meningocele patients, which is considered the least severe form of spina bifida, they're in a much worse situation than we could ever be in. It's crazy.
It's crazy.
It really is crazy.
Like
but
I said before, even when it came to my surgeons recommending, spinal intrusion on me, and I denied it, and I recovered pretty well myself. They really don't know everything. That's the truth.
it's true, they don't.
And we have to, as people with these debilitating conditions, we have to. It has to be a known fact
Right.
within the community.
Are
And
we
people-
spinies? Are we all spinies here?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
we're all
think
spinies.
we are all spinies. Well, there's more spina bifida patients born every day than any other childhood disability.
I knew I liked you guys for a reason. We're all spinies.
So
See?
we've got that for us. But we're the least spoken about and known
We're all
about
vertebrate.
aspect of childhood disabilities.
unvertebrates.
You don't
I mean,
hear
I'm
about us the way you do.
Get it?
You've
Good.
had the surgery.
You have back surgery?
No, I
Oh, not yet.
I refused it.
Don't. If you
I-
can put it off, man.
Well,
Yeah.
I've recovered. I've rehabilitated myself. It took me about
Yeah.
4 years.
Yeah.
But I was looking at $500,000 lawsuit. I got only $6,000 because I didn't get surgeries.
Mhm.
At the time of my lawsuit, they changed the laws in terms of you had to prove permanency. With
That's
this,
what fucked me.
Yeah.
That's what fucked me.
Excuse my
But-
language,
Hey.
but that's what
In terms-
that really is what killed me. The doctors say straight out that she messed up.
Are we online yet?
Black
Just-
and white.
have
Yeah,
you-
we've been on.
Finally.
Oh, you are.
We've been on.
And then I go and curse.
They actually changed the laws around the time of my car accidents and but you know money I didn't I look listen I can care less about the money honestly. The most important thing is I can walk. I'm not I'm not in a wheelchair. I
Mhm.
took a big this is what I did. Everybody thought I thought I was a little bit on the edge with it too, with rehabilitating myself and going through the phases, and it was trials and errors, a lot of pain, a lot of risk in what I did. I took a big gamble. I took a lottery hit, I hit the lottery. One of the very few, but I had a lot of previous knowledge. My body was already I was my bench on the bench. I would work out with like not one time, like I would work out with 400 plus pounds. I would deadlift 500 plus pounds. I would squat, and this is not one times. This is what I used. So before the car accident, my body, my joints, my ligaments, everything was already so strong. I think that was part of the reason when I went into the rehabilitation, I was able to be so successful with mind you, I was experimenting on myself.
Right.
There's a lot of risk I took. It's a little naughty from a lot of perspectives. I thought so too. At times I thought I was gonna fail, but
Nobody knows your body better than you do.
nobody knows. And this is the thing. Well, I mean, and the key. I think, I know, scientifically I can't prove. So I think, but I know in my heart of hearts, cannabis use was a mitigating factor because at that time when I was doing it, Israel actually revealed some, groundbreaking research that they said that cannabinoids do help to strengthen bone.
Yeah.
So I ran with that, I said, what the hell? I said, what's the worst that can happen? They cut me up. I potentially end up in a wheelchair. I try to rehabilitate, and I potentially end up. So I'm like, let me try. Forget the money, whatever. There's a lot of money, So I had a rear end collision a year apart. Yeah. So I had a lot of money, insurance money on the table. The lawyer was, money hungry. The surgeon, everybody, everybody was like, all right, let's cut this kid up. Let's show the courts that we did this and that, whether we were successful or not in our surgery.
So disgusting. Their
Oh,
mandates.
it's the insurance and the insurance procedure and the doctors, the lawyers, the whole gang
It's a
it's
mess.
it's a big mess.
Yeah.
It's a big mess. This is why the state, I guess, decided to implement these extreme rules in terms of like when you go to court, you must prove, because a lot of scam
then
people
it
were
ends up screwing us. Like my
people-
doctor,
people-
I have
I
a
mean,
black and
I
white letter
understand
that
that
she
they
says
wanna
I
protect
messed up, and
themselves.
there's not a damn thing I can do
because
because of
there's a
the
lot of
statute and the overlap, the permanency
there's a lot
overlap.
of scam artists. It's true. There's a lot of people that get into car accidents to get the opiates, to get the insurance money, et cetera, to scam the system.
To not have to pay for their court payment any longer.
Whatever
That's
it is,
popular down by us.
there's scammers. They try to protect themselves at the cost of legitimately injured people.
Mm-hmm.
It's an unfortunate scenario, but the terrible evil people are responsible for this. It's not the innocent people that are truly hurt. And further going, I don't know. The legislators, hopefully they'll have to do some adjustments, or well, it's really up to the medical. The science world should have a machine, the judges or
Yeah.
whoever is
That's
We're not
more
right.
for you to receive the reward. And so what I'm saying is, hopefully within, I don't know, I don't create these machines. I'm not a scientist to say what the time frame will be on, but hopefully they will speed this process up. Jim, you want to say
Hey,
something?
Jim, can
Yeah.
you grab that mic? I want to ask you. No, the black one. The black one.
I've been very lucky to
Yes,
have
I can.
avoided surgeries. I've been responding very well to physical therapy and that kind of physical therapy mostly, and marijuana therapy.
Yeah, cannabis. I don't like the injections. I went blind from a cortisone injection in my spine, so I won't do that anymore.
Mm.
Yeah.
But
That's
Jim,
scary.
Jim, I want to talk to you for a second before we go. Jim, you said to me before.
Well, it's up to you. Let me know when that, and we'll
While he's thinking about that, I just want to bring in that there is a march in Newark on Friday.
Yeah, I'll be there.
July 10th. Oh, great. From 4 to 7 p.m.
Yes.
So that's next
and
week.
to end the war on drugs, yes, next Friday.
Okay.
And then August 15th is the rescheduled Sure Grow patient fundraiser and CMM&J fundraiser. That's Saturday, August 15th from noon to 5.
Woo woo.
Okay, so we need to mark out the 10th
Jim,
and the 15th.
I want to know what you guys were talking about before because I was busy. But before that, you were telling me that you saw an ambulance drive by.
Oh.
What you were thinking about before that ambulance drove
Yeah,
by.
you know,
What was that?
I'll share that. It's like old Jim Miller is back. There's been like an epiphany of sorts, or maybe a whole bunch of outlier coincidences that are impossible to happen so close together. And I've been feeling guilty about not doing enough. And I asked and I step back and I like it. But I've been feeling pulled. And I was on my way back from Toms River to where I go to Mount Laurel, where I live. I live in two places. And I was feeling like really, really bad about it. And I hit a road called Church Road, 1 lane each way, about 5 miles long, no cars on it. And I was thinking about Cheryl and what would she do, and I was thinking, I asked myself, if she was still alive, would I be trying harder? And the answer was yes, times 10. And I thought, but there's other Jims out there and other Cheryls out there, as she would put it, and they're real. And I looked up the road, and it was like, how far is the light there? It's like a tenth of a mile maybe or something. And I looked and I saw the blue and white of a Toms River police EMT ambulance. Well, back in the day they were Dover Township, and then of course got changed all to Toms River. And the 511 was Cheryl's last ride to the hospital on June 3rd, 2003. So I went in the front, she went in the back, she didn't come back, she died 5 days later. So I look up and I hadn't seen the 511 in maybe 4 years. And I'm thinking, no way. And I already knew. As it come by, I see it at 511 and my world changed. I know. It's a coincidence. I get that. And maybe I'm a spiritual person, but not with everybody else's kind of God. To me, it is instinct, intuition, and coincidence. That's what moves me, because that I can see, feel, and smell. But anyway, the odds were really against that. I knew it when I saw it, and things haven't let up since. It's kind of like what friends would tell me cocaine was like. It's just, and it's not with the clarity I used to have, but I can't stand not doing as much as I can, and nobody ever does as much as they can. You can never do something purely. But anyway, apologies in advance to anybody if I'm a little more abrupt, a little more straightforward. I've always been interruptive. That's just kind of one of my bad traits.
Well, what were you guys talking about before? I totally missed it.
It was, we were coming from different directions.
On what?
Well, mostly whether or not we can do things consecutively, concurrently, and Ken makes a good point that it does dilute what you're doing with other people. But then when I think if it's getting out the vote, that's not legislators' job. That's not pulling them away from anything. And as long as we have one person doing one and one person doing another, we can do things consecutively rather than concurrently. And I don't know, I like moderately respectful different points of view, because that's what goes on everywhere, and Ken makes some valid points, and then I have to reassess my way, because that's why I like to hear what Ken has to say, what you have to say, and when we don't have the same point of view, I know I'm never all the way right,
Yeah, I'm sorry, I missed
it's hard
that.
to recognize,
Because I disagree with Weedman right now. I mean, I'm friends with him, but we disagree
No,
on. He wants to vote no, and I want to vote yes. And
Well,
I-
then he votes no and you vote yes.
yeah, that's all it is.
See how, again, though, that's all we can do. It's not like, nobody really, people in the code, we do owe it to get people out to vote, and they know how we feel. And I never ask anybody how you going to vote or vote this way, but I want you to register and vote on this issue. I think everybody
Right,
should. Everybody
right.
has a stake, for or against it.
Right.
You want to vote either way, get on the bus. It's your duty in New Jersey, and it is huge. And what Ken was saying is incredible because the Northeast is kind of watching us. It's like it means so much, and we get people off the battlefield immediately. That goes a lot farther than decrim. Yeah, I'm solidly behind it. I'm a yes vote on that. Easy.
Is decrim going to affect the legalization vote?
Is what?
Decrim, the decriminalization bill.
No,
That was the question I
think
had,
that
yeah.
I think that will be the argument against it, and I think that I know at least Ken is well prepared for that. So I think that I'm going out on a limb saying it's going to pass, but the reason it's going to pass is because people are going to get out and vote for it. My whole opinion is based on people getting out to vote. Yes, it will pass, and it will be a bill that will then brought into fruition with, again, much debate on two different directions and from different sides. But look for me then. You're not going to be able to find me. That's it. See me stepping back?
What does that mean?
I'm not sure. That's a decent question, though, about what effect decrim would have
Hey, I
on
gotta
the
go.
ballot question. Assuming we get a good decriminalization bill passed before November. Obviously some of the legislators like Senator Rice have been our strongest opponents of marijuana reform, even opponent to medical marijuana. I mean, he voted against every medical marijuana bill ever. And yet he introduced the S-2335 or 2535. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's his baby. He's been
Yeah.
talking decrim for years.
Right. So he did introduce a good bill, and I kind of think in the back of his mind, he thinks that it might defuse the drive to legalize marijuana in New Jersey, but I'm not convinced of that. I think it may very well be part of the momentum for marijuana reform. We're
Yeah.
stopping the arrest. Obviously stopping the arrest is an important thing.
Yes.
Or it could have no effect on it. It could either have a positive effect, a negative effect, or no effect. Let's face it. And I tend to think that it'll have either no effect or possibly a positive effect. I don't think that it's going to undermine or derail the efforts to legalize marijuana in New Jersey. Using marijuana inappropriately, even after,
Right.
it's only for adults now. So what are you going to do with these kids?
Yeah.
Are you going to still treat them like criminals?
Right.
Or are you going to, how are you going to stop, how are you going to legitimately discourage minors from using marijuana after, in a situation of adult legal use? Well, there are ways, First of all,
Just like you did with alcohol.
right, it's just like alcohol, education.
Colorado went down. It went down after the legalization.
Grab a mic.
Yes.
Because it's not a vice
Right,
anymore.
right. So, I mean, it doesn't make any sense to say minors should not use marijuana if you're saying at the same time adults should not use marijuana. That
They don't care if it's like
Do you-
Grab a mic, Slav.
in Colorado, the minor cannabis use went down because statistically, because they're saying that to minors it's not fun, it's not a vice anymore, it's not adventurous.
They can't
So
get
they
into
don't
the same
gravitate
kind
anymore
of trouble
towards-
that they can
Yeah,
when
they
they're
don't-
going to,
Right.
drinking
right.
parties.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
So
no fun anymore because
no
mom
fun
and dad were
Right,
okay
well,
with
it's
it.
a medicine.
And
It's a
Yeah.
it's a
No,
medicine.
but
it is.
honestly, that's
Teen
why I
use
didn't
went-
drink
teen
most of my
use-
life.
right.
Good luck
because
giving
I
kids
was
vitamins,
allowed
so
to
I don't know
drink
about
at
you.
home. So
No.
I didn't go doing the party stuff because I didn't have to.
Teen use of marijuana went down 50% in California after the Prop 215, the medical marijuana law passed there.
Totally makes
and
sense.
because teens see AIDS patients and cancer patients
Yep.
and hospice patients using marijuana, it's like it's not glamorous anymore. It's not something they want to emulate.
Right.
In my generation, it was it was glamorous to use it. It was, we knew that
You
it
were a
was not
cool
as
kid.
dangerous as the government was saying.
It
And
was
we
hip.
knew
It
we
was
freaked
hip,
people out when we smoked joints.
Yeah.
And that was
Yep.
part of what we did it for,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
get,
Things. We had it
And
wrong from
still
day
are.
one.
Still
Day
are.
one, we had it wrong.
but the real question is, what kind of penalties are appropriate for minors to,
Right.
how can we discourage them in a
Constructive way.
in an atmosphere of legalization?
Right.
Some people say, well, all right, well, one of the decriminalization bills say it's a $50 fine. $50 doesn't sound much, especially when you compare it to $1,000 that it is now, and 6 months in jail. But still, $50 is a lot of money for a
Right.
teenager, especially if you don't have $50.
Yeah.
Then you run into a whole series of, well, now you're in contempt of court.
Right.
So having a citation, perhaps giving them a citation saying, no, we don't want you doing this, kid. That's an important thing. Community service, that's something.
That's a
Yeah,
really
there
good
you
thing,
go.
I think.
That's
All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
Look,
I
you're
think
not going to
that's
listen
more
to us. We're
appropriate
going to
than
make
anything.
you
That's
do
really
community
good.
service, and we're going to,
Yeah,
we're going to make
that's-
you volunteer for CMMNJ.
That builds character.
That's a phenomenal.
best.
Like,
Yeah.
I love
no,
that.
but
Send them
that's
to us.
perfect
Send your little
because
boys and girls to us,
nowadays,
parents.
if kids can't be
we'll
like
get them
this,
straight.
they
You
don't
know?
want to be involved. If they can't be, and all
So-
the the nurse, the teachers, and everybody says no video games, no video games. Right now, they're saying no, video games are good. Video games are good. But okay, so this is kind of like the same thing. Like if there's a harsh penalty to kids misusing their time when they're playing
Right.
video games, they're not going to misuse it as much. And if they have to go and volunteer, which is going to take time away from their
Yeah.
video game
Video
time,
game,
they're
yeah.
less likely.
But then also,
do
we
it.
have the opportunity to honestly educate people about
Right.
the dangers that are associated with marijuana use, and there are dangers that are associated with marijuana use, especially for naive users.
Right.
It affects your coordination.
Yeah.
It could affect how you're driving. It certainly should not be used in motor vehicles. I'm sorry. I agree with that there is a rule that, medical marijuana patients are not allowed to use their marijuana and be intoxicated when they drive. And I think that's a reasonable regulation. It's something that I now pay attention to as a medical marijuana patient that I did not pay attention to before I was using marijuana illegally.
Is there a therapeutic level of cannabis that can be in your body while you drive?
It's individualized. It's absolutely individualized. If you're an experienced user, I think experience is the real criteria, because marijuana experience is so individualized for so many different people. The main risks that people have is when you're a naive user. You have the possibility of a panic reaction. You have a possibility of a paranoid feeling. You have a possibility of uncoordination. So once you're an experienced user, I mean. Irv Rosenfeld, he's been smoking, 10 marijuana cigarettes a day,
That's not weed.
Well, it is weed. I'm sorry, from the federal government for like 30 years, and he drives to work every day. He has a sailing school for disabled kids. He's a stockbroker. Smokes 10 marijuana cigarettes every day. So he's not affected by it.
Yeah.
You get used to the psychotropic effects of it, and then you can go and function with it. So
Do you feel that's because your body is now absorbing what they're lacking as far as the endocannabinoid system
that's a
is
very
concerned?
good point too, Tracy. Yes.
Because now it's
You know,
leveling
yes,
you out. It's fixing
absolutely,
what's wrong.
Right.
So
The question is, are you? And what's very difficult to achieve is the appropriate therapeutic, dosage for you.
Right.
That's why it really is so important that I was talking about earlier. That the state of New Jersey is empowered by the Jay Koenig law that passed last year to establish a formal system of dosing and administration guidelines for medical marijuana patients. We don't have that now. You get 2 ounces a month, 3 ounces a month. Good luck. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
How you use it is up to you. Trial and error. Well, we can do better than that. So we can at least work on getting a formal dosing and administration guidelines, so the patients who need this to supplement their own endocannabinoid system that is deficient and causing these problems will have exactly the right amount of the exact right combination of cannabinoids for their conditions. And no, that should make them a better person. That should make them better able to function, whether it's
Right.
driving a car, whether it's going to work, whether it's taking care of their kids, whatever it is that they have to do. If they're in balance, if they have achieved homeostasis, which is what the whole purpose of the endocannabinoid system is, if they've achieved homeostasis with the appropriate cannabinoid amount and combination, then they're better able to function.
Right.
I mean, I would much rather have somebody using marijuana and driving a car to control his seizures than to have somebody with an uncontrolled seizure condition driving a car.
Yep. Amen to that. That definitely, and I think for me, like as a single parent, I don't want to be all floating out there.
Right,
and
right,
start
right. No,
because
right.
I need to be cognitive
Absolutely.
to care for
Absolutely.
my son and to do what he needs and
Right.
to do what I need and for our daily lives. So it took me time to find
Right.
that right regimen
Right.
that was going to give me my comfort level. First, I had to not just say that I know I'm never going to be pain-free. I had to really accept it and totally acknowledge that pain-free is not a reality for me.
Right, right.
But I can get to comfortable
Mhm,
or
mhm.
to slightly annoying is even better than, and once I get to that point, I'm good. I don't need to go overboard. I don't need to have anything additional because
Well, and that's what so many people dislike about opioids. I mean, the opioids, they'll control your pain after a while, but you'll be unconscious.
Right.
You'll be a zombie.
Exactly.
So, that who
Yep.
wants to live like that? People consider suicide if that's their only option. Zombiehood or intractable pain.
Terrible.
So, I mean,
It
to
is.
have the marijuana is a miracle drug for so many people because it allows them to achieve a level of comfort that they can function with. And it's a great drug.
Yeah, it definitely
Hey
is.
Justin, can you grab that mic? I want to ask you guys a question. You guys have different kinds of spina bifida. You both have, but you have one kind and you have a different kind. What's the difference?
I have a lipoma tumor
And
on top of my area of effect,
And what do you have?
and he doesn't.
So mine is basically an opening of the spinal cord where the vertebrae is never formed, and the spinal cord that was popping out.
The spinal column.
Yeah, the spinal column that was popping out controlled my L4-5, so I can't move or feel my feet. So mine is just basically an incomplete closure of the spinal cord.
Okay, and you have a tumor, a
Yes.
growth on
Yeah, and
at
so
L4 L5.
where in your case, was your back open when you were born?
Yes,
Yeah.
I had a lesion.
Mine wasn't because tumors can't live without skin covering them, and because my tumor is
Tumors can't live without what?
skin covering them.
Oh, skin.
Okay.
So because of that, that's the only coverage I did have. That was the only reason my spinal cord wasn't exposed. I was not diagnosed at birth. I wasn't diagnosed until 3 months later when the tumor was growing rapidly.
Oh.
And my dad was like, something's wrong. I don't know what it is, but something's wrong. And they kept
What did he
doing-
see? What was? How did you know something was wrong?
Well, the bubble on my back was getting bigger.
was a bubble
and
on your
bigger
back. Oh,
and bigger,
God.
and like they weren't going through diapers with me as much as they were, when my sister was younger, and